all hear me? Good morning, everyone. How about now? All right. Well, welcome. We are so grateful that you are here. My name is Barbara Boone, and I'm the director of the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center. And the reason why we invited you here today is for that center. But welcome to the Ohio State University and to the Center on Education and Training for Employment. That is the space that you're in, this building. Lots of things happen here. I direct the projects that involve families and schools working together. And this Statewide Family Engagement Center is our newest and biggest grant, and we're really excited to be embarking on that. So welcome here. We are tight in this room. I recognize that, and I want a special thank you to the folks who are sitting in those knee knocker seats that I call them in, where you've got kind of a pole in front of you. But we wanted to invite you into our home as a start. You know, sometimes when folks are close to you, when family comes together, you say, yeah, we don't have the biggest house, but we want you in our home. And so for our first meeting, that's where we wanted to bring you here. We'd like you to see the space where we work and bring you on campus. So we will and have bigger spaces, more comfortable spaces for us to meet for some of our other meetings that are coming up. So just to let you know, we wanted to keep you here, and we do want you to be comfortable. I will share some housekeeping with you, but we're grateful to have you here to get started. You are important to us. So let's see here. This center is brand new and it's growing. So the funding for our center came just in October. So you're going to say, wow, things are kind of fresh. You might have said, well, let me look at their website, and you might not have found one, and that's because it doesn't exist yet. In fact, today, one of the things we're going to ask you to do is to help us decide, what should our URL be? What should that web address look like? We want families, we want educators, we want people who want to support student learning in Ohio to all think this is the place that I can go to for resources. So we need to pick the right words. We need to say things in the right way. So all sorts of things we're going to ask for your feedback on. Everyone has a folder at your table, and so let me introduce you to the agenda for the day. Let's just start here, and we'll keep moving forward. But on the left-hand side, you'll see this is where we're headed for today, just so you know you've gotten into today. We'll do some welcome and introductions, especially with the folks at your table, and I think a lot of you have started on that already. And then I'd like to talk to you about the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, what it is, what we're going to do, and you know, they are funded, and we are funded by the U.S. Department of Education to do this work. So this is really a national effort. So we wanted sort of you to understand the purpose behind that and sort of where we are headed. We also want to talk about this council and your role and what we would like to learn from you, what we'd like to share with you, and what, how we want to work together with you. Then we will have a break. Yes, we'll have breaks, and you'll be able to move around. So you know there are restrooms right outside the door here. Also, there are stairs in the corner. If you head up those stairs, there are restrooms at the top of the stairs as well. So we will take a break, and then we're going to shift a little bit, because I think in your invitation you probably heard me or read that we were going to work with the Ohio Department of Education to help design and inform Ohio's statewide family engagement framework. I'm just going to leave that there. We'll talk more about what that is and what it's going to be and how you can help shape that. So that is the piece of work that we would like to do with you today. We've got lunch planned. We've got lunches coming. I know most of you kind of told us what you'd like to have, and we are going to take a nice break for that. So if you need to make calls, if you need to connect with someone, if you just need to get up and move around like me, you're not used to sitting much, so we'll have some time to do that then. And then we'll really dig into working on that framework with the Department of Education this afternoon. I promise that we will get you out the door before or by 2 o'clock so that you can get back on the road. I know many of you drove quite a distance to be here, and we're grateful for that. All right, so our goals for today, and let me make sure that I have our let me see, our housekeeping. Right. Well, let's talk a little. I'll talk about goals today, and I'll go back to our housekeeping. So we really feel like when we come together with you, we'd like to always do 4 things. that will help us as a statewide family engagement center, but also hopefully, we hope that these meetings are as helpful to you as they are to us. And so one of the things is we would like to share information with you. We have some prepared today, but we also want to know what information you would like to know more about. We read your applications and we read your questions, and some of you said, I'd like to learn more about what is effective family engagement. When does it work when schools and families are working together to support students in their learning? What does that look like? And so we really want to do that at every meeting. So we want to hear from you about what you'd like to know, and we also bring information to you. We also want to listen well. You know, when we work with schools, we often say, how do you communicate with families? And sometimes we hear a lot about informing families. And then we want to talk about how well do we listen? And we really want to model that. We want to be good listeners. And that's why you're here. Because we didn't want to just survey you. We didn't want to just sort of send you things and ask you to give us feedback. We really wanted to hear, for you to be able to really ask questions and tell us what your community needs. What do your schools need? What do you need? What do families in your community need? What are their strengths? What are their interests? We'd like to know that so that we can so that will help guide our work. Another is connecting. You've started already, but we want you to make connections with one another. There are many organizations here. There's many folks from different schools here. We have families from around the state here, and we have 4 amazing high school students with us. So we hope that you will connect with each other. But even beyond this, we know that you all come from many resources, organizations, and schools, and other family members and community members that we would like to be in touch with. And then we want to work with you. We really see these meetings each time as helping us to move something forward. So not just talking about it, but let's roll up our sleeves and work together. So we hope that we will be productive every time we come together. So today, our goals. What we really want to do is, number one, make you feel welcome. And if we haven't done that and aren't doing that, let us know if you have something that you need. You are important to us. We are grateful that you're here. And we want to tell you about the center and about the council, as I said. We also want to talk about the development of this family engagement framework that our Ohio Department of Education and our partners are doing. And we want to learn from you here today. Those are our goals. We hope that you will, one, I want to just challenge each of you to at least have 4 new connections before you leave here today. To meet 4 people, to make 4 connections, and 4 relationships with other council members. And 1, give us some input. We're going to ask you for input on lots of things. One of them is that URL. What should it be? And then give input on the development of the framework, and leave the meeting today. I sure hope you leave the meeting today and say, this was time well spent for me. I know that each and every one of you had many other competing things for your time today, and you made the choice to be here. And we want to honor that, and we want you this to be time well spent. So always let us know if it hasn't been, or in some way we could improve that. Okay, our goals for today. So a little bit of housekeeping. I think I said the restrooms out the door and upstairs. There's another if you feel like going further, because we're always measuring our steps when we walk around the building. And it's more steps if you head down this hallway all the way to the end and turn left. So if you know you're counting your steps, you want more steps, there's restrooms at the far end of the building as well. There are refreshments. There's drinks in the kitchen. Feel free to take care of yourself in any way. So we will take a break, but you can always go get a drink of water, coffee, tea, if you'd like to do that. Oh, just made fresh coffee. It's like my favorite word, fresh coffee. All right, other things that we want you to know. So in your packet there, for some of you, for all of you, we have a photo release form. And you know that pictures speak more for us almost than words do, right? And we know that we are going to have to really leverage and use social media in order to connect with Ohioans. And a lot of times that happens with photos. So we want to be able to take pictures of things as well as taking notes, right? I mean, we want the notes in the meeting minutes. I mean, we will share things like that with you, but we also want to be able to capture this work in photographs. So if you do not want photographs, we will certainly honor that. But please know that that form is in there, and we will want to have that from each and everyone, just so that we know what we are able to do there. And also for our families, we know that you gave up either work time or home time or precious time of yours to be here, and so we do have stipends for all of you, and we want to cover your travel as well. So please make sure that your vendor form is complete. And Kristen back here in the corner is a great person for you to get those to. So we'll be collecting those coming around during break, but we want to make sure that we have that information from you. All right, let's see here. Other things we have. Okay, and so there's a lot of us here today, and I'm a good whistler. I can whistle loud, but I'm not going to do it here today. What I'll do as we work and sort of break up into groups and come back together, I'm going to raise my hand when I need all of us to kind of rally back together. So that's how we'll sort of get attention all back together from discussions back to the centers. I'll raise my hand. If you see it, raise your hand too, and help your friends who aren't whose backs are turned to the front to know that. Also on your table, you're thinking, what is on the table? Well, I think play is an amazing thing, and sometimes I can't sit still. And so if you are someone who just likes to kind of have something with your hands, helps you think, helps you pass the time, that's what these are for. We like to use these when we are ever have meetings with folks. Just sometimes we like to fidget. I have a son who's a fidgeter. Oh, he always will be. So things for you to fidget with, also some sticky notes for writing ideas and that sort of thing, and some markers as well. So that's why those are on the table. They are there to be touched and played with. So, all right. So I'm going to stop now, and I want to make sure that if you haven't already had the chance, that you get to introduce yourself to everyone at your table. And would just please share your name and where you came from today, how you learned about the council. Make sure everybody gets a turn at your table. We're just going to do this for a couple of minutes, all right? So I'm going to stop and let you do that, and then I'll call you back together. Thank you. So I want to take a minute now and introduce you to our team here at Ohio State. So I'll start with Kristen. She's next to me. So Kristen Meekenen, you heard a lot from Kristen. She keeps us all on track and organized. Our team, while Meredith and I have been working together for a number of years now, so we are sort of a newly assembled team that I am super excited about. So Kristen is our detail person, and so I'm not. So if you ever have a question, you think this is kind of a detail thing, it might go to Kristen. So Kristen really keeps us moving and sort of crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's. She also takes care of all of us really well. So we have Kristen, she is sort of our project coordinator. Scott Renshaw on our team. Scott really helps us look a lot at data and organizing our work and tracking our progress. Part of being a statewide family engagement center is we are evaluated very strongly, very intensely, rigorously. There's a lot of people measuring this. There are national evaluators. We have a state evaluator. And we feel like evaluation is something that's really our job. And so we evaluate ourselves. We really monitor our work. So Scott is doing that. Kia Crenshaw is our newest member, and Kia is our communications and marketing person. We feel like, you know, we're at a huge university. We've been doing this work a long time. We know lots of stuff. We want to communicate it really well, and so Kia is here helping us to do that well. We all have learned so much about communications and marketing already, and it's been 3 weeks? 3 weeks. And Dr. Meredith Wellman, who has been we've been working together for 3 years or so in the area of family engagement. And so Meredith, I always feel like she's sort of a lobe of my brain. She knows all things and does it well. So, and really leads this work. She's our project leader on this. So, yes, and so in the back too, James Riley, standing up, the tall guy there, he helps us with our computers. I need help every day. I blame it on my computer, and Greg Nagy is videotaping for us. So, and Bess Dunlop in the back helps us with fiscal things, helping to understand that and track all of the work. So, anyway, I wanted to invite that team as well, and then I'd like to also thanks, guys. I don't think we were all comfortable, and we are just going to mingle with you. The Ohio Department of Education is our partner in this, so that was part of the application is that this was a joint venture between our university and the Department of Education. So folks here at this table, I want to introduce to you Tom Caprara. Tom is one of the leaders for family engagement at the Ohio Department of Education. You want your title?
I have a new title.
There you go.
Student Services Coordinator at the department. I'm in improvement and innovation, and I believe that family engagement is a tried and true school improvement method, and so I try to get people to listen to me about that every single day. So thanks for coming today.
Yeah, and Tom is going to be leading our afternoon. So, all right, introduce yourself.
My name is Kim Priatel. I'm a graduate student research intern with the Ohio Department of Education. I focus a lot on policy, and I've been working on family engagement with Tom for about 2 years now.
All right.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Saylor, and I am a program specialist in the Office of Early Learning and School Readiness. So that's birth through kindergarten entry, and I focus on curriculum and assessment. Former life elementary teacher, curriculum director, always engaging families with all sorts of fun activities and events, and supporting teachers with whatever their needs may be, with conferences and phone calls and the positive supports, but also having the hard conversations sometimes. And I'm a new mom. I have a 6-month-old daughter, so I'm excited to be on this team and look forward to the day.
All right. And this team is working on that framework we've been talking about. So we have Anita here as well. Introduce yourself real quick.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Anita Armstrong, and I am also with the Ohio Department of Education. I serve as the Head Start State Collaboration Director, and I have the privilege of working with all of these folks.
Okay.
And really excited to be here.
Okay. Just want to call it David. All right.
Good morning. I'm David Brower. I administer the Lao Resource Center, which is a small team at the Department of Education who runs the program for English learners through the state. So students learning English as a second, third, fourth, other additional language. We have funding available through our office, through Title III, those are federal funds. And one of the required uses of those funds, when it gets to schools, is that they use it for family engagement with families that have English learners.
Okay. So I just want to point out, they are our close partners on this. We are working together on this work. So let me dive in and talk to you about the Statewide Family Engagement Center grant a little bit. So I'd like you to really understand what we're doing it and why we're doing it. A lot of why we're doing and how we're doing is because we said we would. We submitted an application for this federal grant and made lots of promises. And so we are going to exceed all their expectations on these things. So one is that the family engagement centers are in legislation. They are in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. You might have heard of it as the Every Student Succeeds Act, the ESSA, or maybe No Child Left Behind. That was, right? So that law says that states should have family engagement centers. And sometimes, when available, Congress can provide funding for those. And they have, these are updated from Parent Information Resource Centers. You might have, if you've been in education or if you've been a parent for a while, you might have heard of the PIRCs in the states. So the Parent Information Resource Centers. They were around for a couple of decades. And then about 10 years ago, the funding in the federal budget went away for those. And so many states lost those centers. Now some states were able to fund them from their state. But so what we had is the U.S. Department of Education created a competitive grant this time. Instead of sort of funding a center within every state, they said, we have some funding, let states apply. And so I'm not actually sure how many states applied, but we were one of 11 states awarded this grant. Okay? So it was a competitive grant, and we like to tell people, we're going to tell you, we got the highest score. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So they have funded 11 of these state centers. There are 2 other states that the State Department of Education was the partner with a university. That's in South Carolina and in Hawaii. And the other states, there were some nonprofit organizations or organizations that work with schools who were the applicants. So we received, in total, will be a $4.2 million award, and that started October 1st. This was a whirlwind. They announced it the first week of July. It was due at the end of July. And we applied. We found out September 20th or something, and in 2 weeks the funding started. So we are moving. All right. So it's probably, if you hadn't heard of it before, it's because it just wasn't here before. And then as well, so it's a 5-year grant, and how we see this is it's a great start. It's a great way for us to start building a foundation. We don't see this as a 5-year venture. We see this as something we're getting in place for Ohio that will continue. All right, so our partners. So in the application, they said, who are your partners going to be? You are our partners, but they wanted to know sort of organizationally who our partners would be. So the Ohio Department of Education, of course, is on the application. The state superintendent signed on for the state of Ohio. He's very supportive and interested in the center. We also, in our grant, said we are going to partner closely with Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. They have an evidence-based program called the National Network of Partnership Schools that has been around for about 3 decades. It's got a lot of research behind it. We've seen success in Ohio and across the country. It's actually internationally used. Said we'd like to bring this evidence-based training to Ohio. So part of our work will be bringing Johns Hopkins to Ohio, and over the course of 3 years of the grant, they will train folks at our state level in our 16 regions, as Ohio Department of Education sort of organizes their work in Ohio. 16 regions will train folks in those regions. And in each of those regions, each year, a school district leader, and in each of those districts, at least 2 school teams that will have both family members and teachers on that team. So all of those people to receive training. So what we go a little bit, I have a slide with a little bit more detail on that, but we're also, one of our official partners on this is the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement. So they are a new national organization around family engagement, supporting those professionals in the world who are family engagement professionals, but also this work, because we know that family engagement happens at home. Right? It happens at school, it happens in the park, and it happens in after-school programs, right? Wherever we are learning. And then, remember I said we had this really rigorous evaluations. So our partner for this evaluation is called the Youth Policy Institute, and it's their job to measure our effectiveness and what we do. So, all right, so those are our partners. So in a nutshell, sometimes if you're like me, I love little diagrams with arrows. It somehow helps me figure out how things work. So as a statewide family engagement center, in the law and in our application, we promise to, one, provide technical assistance. So what's that mean? It really helps to sort of be helpful to both families, but also to schools or organizations around how do we do this work well, providing technical assistance. Also training, producing resources and tools, and what they say is for the systematic and effective home-school partnerships. What we know is that many families are great at really supporting their kids' education, and some want more information. Some schools and some teachers were really good at this, and some others not. So we wanted it to be system-wide, right? We wanted kids to have this support preschool through graduation and beyond. But who to work with? So in this grant, we work with families, we work with the State Department of Education, and that's why I sort of very pointedly pointed them out here with us. School districts, schools directly, and also organizations. And why? For the development and academic achievement of children birth through career. So that's where we're headed and what we're called to do. And this is sort of our, in a sense, our North Star. So as we think about all the different things that we could do with this time and resources, we'll always be going back to, does it fit here? Is this what this work is? All right, so it's for all of Ohio. Some of your questions were, well, where will this apply? We are really called to reach all of Ohio, and so you'll see, that's why many of you are here. You are here from very different parts of Ohio. It's cradle to career. Really goal linked. We are not doing this because it's just a good thing to do, right? Because we want to see students having the support that they need and families having the support that they need so that they can go the places that they want to go to and they have that academic achievement that they work hard for. We want effective practices for today, and I say that because, you know, sometimes times change, and what we did in 1955 isn't necessarily the best thing for us to be doing now. There's a lot of research in family engagement and how schools and families work together. So we want to learn from that, and we want to make sure that that's the type of things that we are really focusing our time on. And everywhere. So we know that learning happens in school, but learning happens at home. Learning happens, like I said, in the park. A lot of learning happens around the dinner table. So that's how we think of learning also. So we want to support learning at lots of different places. We also, and this is in the law, but it's also in our grant. So we want to make sure that we have a particular focus on families in Ohio, of our low-income families, our English learners, minorities, students with disabilities, students who experience homelessness, students who are in foster care, our students whose families are migrant workers. So we're going to really be paying attention to everyone. Okay. All right. So I was telling you about the National Network of Partnership Schools and Johns Hopkins. So what are they going to do? You're saying, boy, this is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's all great. So here's something very focused that we're going to do. One of the pieces of work that we're going to be doing over the next 5 years with Johns Hopkins is they're going to come to Ohio and provide training for all regions of Ohio. And in each of those regions, over the 3 districts, they can provide training and support to more. But we said we would at least have 3 districts in each region receive training and coaching in this evidence-based model. We said we would really focus also on our school districts that are working hard, but the student achievement on their report cards is not what they would like it to be. So they're sort of looking at how do we serve our students more effectively, and so we're going to be really trying to focus in on supporting those districts who are intensive or what we call moderate support in Ohio. And then also for each of those districts to at least be able to bring teams of parents and teachers from at least 2 schools, and we're saying 1 elementary and 1 high school. They can have more, but we sort of, these are our minimums. So 96 school leaders and their teams will receive the training and resources as well. And we said if we estimated moderately, if we kind of took the average size school in Ohio and multiplied that, we think that their work, these parents and teachers and leaders who do this work with this model, will touch at least 10,000 families in their schools, through these schools. So that's how that plays out. That's one part of our work, to bring this evidence-based model with Johns Hopkins to Ohio to provide a lot of training and a lot of support and resources to help implement that in their schools. What we like about this model is it's not a program. Sometimes you kind of do an evidence-based program, right? And so it's 8 weeks. You use this manual, you do these activities, and you get these results. And there's good research behind it saying this is an effective program. This is not that kind of a program. This is a program that, and training that helps school leaders and teachers and parents develop a team to look at how well are we doing this work together and how can we improve. And they develop their own local plan. What we like about that is because Ohio has very different schools, very different communities. Every community is already hard at work in this area. So it's a way of saying, what are we already doing? Can we do other things? Can we do what we're doing better? Are there things we should stop doing and improve on? So it lets every community, every school, but families are at the table. Families are a part of that process. So that's why we selected this model. I'm going to keep going a little bit, and then we'll have a little bit of time, just because I know that some questions are forming in your mind. And you probably have already noticed that in the handouts on the right-hand side, there is an overview about this that kind of touches on some of the things that I just talked about. So this council, how does it fit in? Well, we've been dreaming about you since July. I want you to know that. I hope that doesn't sound creepy. But, but we said, what would it look like for us? What kind of council? We could have had 3 parents and 2 organizational people. We could have had 5 people in the room today. But we said we don't want 5 people. We'd like to have people from as many parts of Ohio as we can here to help us do this work. So we started thinking about how we would do that and what we would do. So here's how we see the council at this time. And that's one that you will share with us the experiences, the needs, the interests, the strengths, and perspectives of the communities, families, and schools that you represent. Already today, Mr. Murray here shared with me, hey, these are great things that we see working in our area. And I couldn't be happier to say, yes, thank you. We need to hear about this. How do we maybe help more of this happen? How do we learn from this? How do we share it? So yes, please, we want to hear from you. So don't ever hesitate and think, well, should I share this or not? We want to know. Another is giving us feedback, all right, on the selection of resources that we should develop, how we develop them, what they look like. We want you to give us feedback. So we're going to be hopefully bringing things to you, hearing from you, getting your feedback so we can improve on things as we create them. Partnering with our center to seek out new partnerships. So you may be able to connect us with great things that are happening in your community. I'm hoping, now our intent was that right in this room you would be meeting people who you will think, wow, I'm so glad I met them because they're going to be helpful for me, or I can be helpful for them. And also, we are hoping that you will share what you learn here, so you'll be able to talk to other people in your schools, in your communities, other families you know about. So being for us sort of eyes and ears and voices for your community and for your organizations and your schools. That's really what we are hoping that you, the place that you will be for us. So let's talk about who's here, besides for a bunch of Buckeyes. So our family representatives here come from 20 counties and 23 different school districts. So just raise your hand if you are one of our family representatives here. Just, you're all around the room. All right, yes. So we had over 120 applicants for you, and we were so glad to sort of, oh my goodness, that was the hardest thing I think lots of us have ever done. We laid every application out and we said, okay, can we just bring everybody? But we couldn't do that. So those are our families who are here. And we have our organizational representatives here from lots of different parts. Now, since we are in the capital, and most of the people here who represent an organization are coming from an organization that either represents a whole region or the state. So for instance, Extension has extension educators in every county of Ohio. We kind of put them in Columbus because here they are at Ohio State, but we could have put them in every county as well. So there are many things like Family and Children First Councils who are in every county. We have our coalition. We have all sorts of folks here who know and work all over Ohio. So please don't be too concerned about all the dots here. All right. We also have, with our family representatives, we have 7 families who live in more urban communities, 11 in rural, and 9 in suburban communities. And we have, now we asked you, who are you? What perspective are you going to bring to this council? And so folks, you wrote to us and you told us, well, this is who I am. And so folks, one of you identified, I'm an uncle of a student in school. Some of you have adopted children. We have lots of moms in the room and single parents. We have our 4 hero students. We have a grandparent. We have folks who said, I'm a legal guardian. Fathers and foster parents as well. So many of you probably wear a few of those hats, but this is sort of how you described yourselves to us. And also, in regards to age grade, we have 9 families here who are family members with young children. We have 13 with elementary age students and 18 with middle and high school students here. Okay, isn't this fun? We are so excited to meet all of you. Oh boy. So what we'd like for you to do now, let me pause for a moment and just ask at this point in time if there are questions, because then we want to give you a chance to talk at your tables again. Questions for me after all of that you think I could just, or if you're ready to go, we'll keep moving on. But I'm happy to pause here. Okay. All right. All right. So it sounds to me, sorry about that. Yes. So while some folks are moving their cars, sorry we didn't catch that one earlier. Will you do this with me? At your table, would you try to find 10 things that you have in common? And you're going to need to voluntold someone to be your recorder. All right? If you're and I think this will give us time for folks to move their cars and be back in the conversation with you. So let's start 10 things. It could be you all like rock and roll. It could be you all have a dog. It could be 10 things you have in common. And then I'll let you know when we go on to step 2. Let's start with step 1. 10 things you at your table have in common. Don't have 10 yet. Okay. 2 minutes? 2 minutes. All right, 2 minutes. And here's what we're going to do in 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you to join with another group and see if you have some common things. We're going to try to see if you have 5. You might need to go off list if you need to. Let's see, 5 things in common. We were getting down to pretty bare basics at our table, like we love our families. So, all right. Let's see. So let's see. How about these 2 tables merge? We're going to move on to number 2. They're getting their last ones done over here. How about these tables merge? We have 9 tables. Okay, how about these 2 tables merge? Where is the rest of your table? Oh, you're here. Are you here? No. Who's here? All right. I might ask, oh, this is going to be hard. I can't split tables. Oh, we might need to be one big one. One big group. All of us together. Right here. Right here. Come on, you can get out of your seats and move a little bit. Who's going to be the... Oh, wait. Just you guys. We're actually counting numbers here, thinking that, okay, thank you for being flexible. All right. Good, okay. Okay, you ready? So we need a fearless, voluntold person to keep track here. I'll give you some time to talk.
We all have children.
Okay.
We all are passionate about
Tom. Oh. There you go. You like? Break in just a minute. All right, let's start back here in our back of the room group. All right, here we go. Let's hear what their common things. Yeah.
A list of 5 things that we have in common are that we all do volunteer work.
Wow.
We're all voters.
Yeah.
We like sports. We all care about family engagement, and that we all have been to school.
Oh, I love it. All right, thank you. All right, how about here in this group?
We actually had 10. If you combine them, we can go through both lists. But we all currently work with families. We all like to travel. We all use technology. Pizza is a group favorite.
Pizza.
Historical fiction, book
Ooh.
type.
Wow.
80s and 90s are our favorite music. We've all ridden a plane, and we're here.
Thank you. Very good. All right, how about here?
We have that we all are passionate about children. We all live in Ohio. We all have siblings.
Oh.
We all have cell phones.
Uh-huh.
We all like coffee.
Oh,
and
nice.
We all advocate for children.
Oh, very good. Thank you. This is great. And how about here? Our last.
Our group, we all have students at the table. We all like Fridays. We all came in our own vehicles. We all live in homes, and we all like to help others.
All right, way to go. Very good. Thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to let you keep standing here for a minute. And Meredith, do you want me to just keep going here? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we have started a Twitter account. Kia's got us, tweeting. And so we do have a hashtag, and if you want to follow us, you're on Twitter. We have a Twitter account. And so we would like to hear, so we're going to take a break now, but we have, as you're mingling around and moving about, we'd ask you to use those sticky notes on your table. And if you would tell us, we've got some chart paper in the back. If you have a question for us, please write it down, and you can put it, or find one of us and ask us. Just put it on one of our charts there. Tell us something you're most excited about. If that's something you'd like to share with us, we've got a chart paper back there in the corner. And then the last thing is, like I said, we're trying to figure out should that URL read? What would make sense? So if you have ideas for that, we put up a few there. You can tweet them to us, or you can. Oh, we've got another chart over there. You can stick that on. If someone writes one that you like, you can always just star it if you want, so that's great too. So we are going to break for about 14 minutes. Is that okay? And then we'll kind of be back on track. Restrooms are there. Feel free to get more coffee. Take some time to move around the building.
Can you go back to the Twitter slide? That's what I was
Oh, yes, I will. Thank you. There you go.
I'm doing my best.
Yes, hello everybody. It's really great to be here today. Barbara, Meredith, and I have been kind of working together for the last couple years, and this is like a culmination of like a lot of efforts, so I'm super excited to be in front of you today. Slightly nervous, hopefully you don't notice. I don't know if I'm more nervous about speaking to all of you or being the last thing between you all and lunch, but I'm going to try to motor through this and hopefully get some interaction with you all today. I know you've taken in a lot of information this morning. The afternoon will be more, basically all your time to share your thoughts and ideas about this. So let's get us started here. And as was said before, I'm with the Ohio Department of Education, and I am kind of leading a lot of stuff around family engagement efforts. And as I said, this is something I deeply believe in. I believed in my teaching career, and I believed in when I moved to the Department of Education. It's something that can really drive achievement in schools, but not just achievement, drive school culture, all sorts of things that can lead students and families themselves to be successful. So we came together as a group and started this work called Growing Together. And the reason that we called it Growing Together is because family engagement of any type, community, family, doesn't happen just in school. It doesn't just happen in a classroom or phone calls home. It happens, as we've said, any kind of place where families and partners are working together to help educate their child. And not only that, it doesn't happen in K-12, right? It happens as soon as children are born and start interacting with other systems, whether it's their doctor's office or any type of education or early care program. So we had immediately knew we were going to have to wrap in a bunch of partners to learn about this, because our purview at the Department of Education is like fairly narrow in terms of like all of the education going on all over the place. So we're happy to have you here today, and happy to tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do and how you can help us do that. As we're going through this, I put together a little handout in here. It looks like this. This doesn't necessarily follow the PowerPoint slide by slide, but it does have like a lot of the information I'm going to talk about here in a little prettier of a format. So if you need to reference anything or want to talk about this later, this is a good little handout to have handy. So this was called Growing Together, our commitment to family engagement. And what are we committing to? Because like obviously we're committing to mindsets and we're committing to aligning our work towards this and we're committing to how important it is, but like it doesn't really matter if we don't like have something to give to people or to produce, right? So there's a couple things that we are committed to producing before the end of this year. So we got a lot of work to do in the next 9 or so months here. We want to produce a definition because we know that having, a little bit of guardrail or guide rail around things help us make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. We want to have a birth to grade 12 framework. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a framework is to us in a second, but you might notice they're birth to grade 12 or birth to graduation as we're kind of moving towards calling it, because like we said, as soon as a child comes into the world, they're being exposed to and influenced by all different types of systems and people and individuals. So we really want to set the stage for what engagement could look like and should look like kind of as soon as people are entering into early care or early education programs. And we think that's important because it can really set the stage for what a relationship between families and school and other systems can look like from a very early age, and then we feel a little more comfortable once we move into the kindergarten and later realm. Also through graduation, because I know if you guys are familiar with family and community engagement, a lot of this is centered in like K-5, K-6, and we're like, we got to get the parents out here to come to these nights and stuff, and then you might have a curriculum night in like middle school or high school, but there's like kind of a little bit of a drop-off of this type of activity. But there's a lot of research that shows that that's actually kind of a more important time to be engaging families. So we really want to focus on that middle school and secondary level as well. And then this bunch of jargon here, an aligned technical assistance response, that probably doesn't mean anything to a lot of people, but it means a lot to us at the department. we have technical assistance responses for all types of things, whether it's early childhood education, whether it's Title III stuff, whether for me supporting students in foster care. But there's never kind of been a situation where you could call the Ohio Department of Education and say, hey, we're really interested in implementing this in our school. Can you kind of give us some tools to help us get there? So we want to make sure that the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center in the Ohio Department of Education are capable and have a process in place for helping education programs and families kind of get what they need out of that relationship. So now a little bit about a framework, because framework's kind of like a hot topic, right? You might hear frameworks all the time, but what the heck does a framework mean? What does that actually do for us? So a framework is kind of a guide sometimes for building or an expansion of something that is useful, right? And we'll look at some examples of that in a second. It's a tool that helps structure the approach to a problem. So maybe we're not thinking about family engagement as a problem as much as we are an opportunity, but we can structure kind of the activities that we do so we can reflect on those and hopefully improve them. And lastly, framework describes kind of what we should be paying attention to. So there's all types of things happening in schools and education programs, and there's all different types of ways to engage families, but maybe a framework can help us focus on those 2 or 3 things that are going to have the biggest impact for our families and students. So, to get a better sense of a framework, let's just start with the word. What's a frame and what's work, right? So a framework, as silly as it sounds, is kind of a frame to do work inside of. So do any of you guys live in neighborhoods where all the houses kind of look similar? Or an apartment building where like the units are kind of laid out the same way? Even though those apartments are laid out the same way or your house looks similar, are every amenity in those places the exact same? No, I'm sure that your apartment looks very different from your neighbor's apartment, or the inside of your house looks different from your neighbor's house. And that's because a framework does something very important. A framework gives us the guide of how to build something. It helps us make it safe. It helps us make buildings safe. It helps us make sure buildings have everything that we need. There's going to be spaces for some of your like HVAC stuff and their plumbing and all this stuff. But when we get to the end of the day, you're going to have the opportunity to make this look like what you need it to look like for your family. And so that's kind of the way we're looking at a framework here. And the other way to look at it, if we took a look at a picture frame, frames are generally for photographs, right? But you can frame other stuff, right? Does anyone have anything else that's in a frame? Maybe like a diploma or something, right? Yeah, but even though you can fit these different types of items in a frame, there are kind of parameters there. You can't put something that's 12 inches long in a 9-inch frame, right? So it gives us a shape to what we're doing, and it gives us a sense for how we should be planning activities. And that's why I think frameworks are important. It gives us a sense for the important components to keep everything inside of. So, this is something a framework is not, right? Because being from the Ohio Department of Education, people always think that I'm coming here to like promulgate some type of like thing that people have to do or tell them exactly what the right thing to do is, and that's the last thing that I want. I don't know what the right thing to do is for your school just because I'm up here talking to you, but we can talk about what a framework is not. And a framework is not a law, it is not a policy, it is not a requirement, it's not actually a how-to guide either, right? If you remember, there were a bunch of different ways to build inside of a frame, or to put some things inside a frame, build something inside of a frame of a house, but it does give us kind of those broad strokes to figure out exactly what the necessities are. And so the other thing that a framework isn't is it's not an intervention or an activity. So if your school is saying, we want to have student-led parent-teacher conferences, a framework is going to kind of help guide you there, but it's not going to tell you exactly what that is, right? So this is hard to see, but I'll list off some things. And while I'm listing this off, please think of some other things that you might fit in these lists. And these two lists are, what does a good framework have and what's a bad framework have? So try to think about some things I might have missed up here. And so like a good framework, it's like concise. It's graphical. You can see pieces and parts. You can flip to pages really quick and get what you need out of it. The big thing here is that number one, you can understand it, and number two, you can take it and do something with it, right? Some other things, it's research-based. That's a good thing to have. It focuses us on our goals. That's great. It includes definitions, things like that, and it kind of connects the dots for us. Because we all know all types of stuff is going on in school, all types of things are going on at your house, so how can we leverage some things that are already going on? Now, what's a bad framework have? Super complex. I'm sure like some of you have looked at like just 30-page PDFs. Someone's like, oh, this is a good idea, and you're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I can do with this, and I don't know how this is going to help my student or my child learn. That goes with length, you know. If things are too lengthy, we all have smartphones, like we're like constantly taking in information. We can't have stuff on here, up here that takes us an hour to work through. Too general, or it doesn't consider unique context. We were so focused on bringing a geographic diversity of people here because we know Ohio has very unique communities throughout the state, right? This just floating in outer space, not being aligned to other stuff, is also a sign of a bad framework. There are all types of other things going on in education. There are all types of other things going on in your house. And if this doesn't connect to any of those things, what's the point? So up here, I got these lists. Does anyone have other stuff that you think we should be wary of or looking forwards to trying to fit into a framework? That's okay, because you'll be able to give us a ton of feedback this afternoon. So I'll make sure to get to what you're saying from the notes later. So we talked about what good and bad frameworks are, but what does a framework really give to us and to educators, really? It gives us definitions, so we know what we're focused on. We know what family engagement is. We're not just kind of saying, oh yeah, family engagement, that's a good thing. Sounds good, right? It's a buzzword or whatever, but it's not a buzzword. We can put parameters around what it really means. It helps schools be more efficient, right? If it's telling us what the important things to look for are, we're not spending time spinning our wheels to try to make connections ourselves. It also gives us consistency and sustainability. And consistency is super important because to improve, you have to know what you're doing. And to know what you're doing, you kind of have to do it the same way. You can't be doing it a different way every week and then say, I don't know why it's working. You'll have nothing to go back and reflect on, right? It gives us big picture reference points. Like I said, it's not going to tell you how to do student-led conferences, but it might tell you some clues on how to communicate about those conferences to families, or what to do once you get information from those families, or what to do if no one showed up for student-led conferences. It might give you some things to think about that way. It's also time-saving, right? Like I said, if we bring out the big important points, it frees up kind of this research that, frankly, families don't have time to do, educators don't have time to do, administrators don't have time to do. All three of those groups are very focused on doing what's right for children, and they don't really have time to be writing dissertations like at their desk about what the best way to engage families is. The other thing that this does is it helps take those people that do have time to write dissertations and papers on how the best way to engage families are, and then help us put it into practice. Because we know if you've ever read an academic paper, you might not quite know what to do afterwards. You're like, oh, that was very interesting, and I'm never really going to think about this ever again. I might throw out some lines from it, but it's not helping us do a whole bunch. So why is this important now? Well, it's always been important. We just have a little more of a focused effort on it these days. And there's a couple of reasons. We were really lucky. I don't know if any of you got to participate on it, but the Ohio Department of Education recently put together a pretty extensive strategic plan for education in Ohio. And they kind of helped us think about this a little bit more broadly, right? So it shouldn't be an Ohio Department of Education strategic plan. It should be a strategic plan that's going to take in the feedback of families. It's going to take in the feedback of community partners and the other agencies that influence your child's education from birth to graduation, and set a very focused goal for us all to be working towards. And this kind of happened simultaneously with what we've been doing with this, but it also helped us think about how we should be engaging our friends out here in the field. The other thing that happened, luckily, is Ohio was invited to be in a state consortium with other states around family engagement. And all you need to know that means is this is part of a national movement. Ohio's not just sitting here saying that this is important. There's 20 states over the last 3 years who have committed to doing the same thing that we're committing, because this is a high impact activity for students and for families. And so it's really exciting to be part of a movement of states that are saying this is important, and we're going to talk to our families and see how we can make sure that everyone's getting what they need to be successful. And the last thing that is really exciting, of course, is the opportunity for a statewide family engagement center. Barbara, Meredith, and I have been tracking this part of the law since the Every Student Succeeds Act was introduced, and for a couple years there's nothing in the budget, then all of a sudden there's $10 million in the budget, or however many $1 million it was. It might have been more than that, to be $100 million, I don't know, whatever, not important. But there was millions of dollars in the budget all of a sudden. And so we got really excited, and we got all our ducks in a row, and we made sure we put together the best application possible for the state of Ohio. And Barbara's already talked about kind of what the center is going to do. It's going to help the Department of Education, but it's also going to help directly outreach, or do outreach to families. So, what does being part of a national movement do for us? It gave us access to partners who are thinking through the same things, which is always helpful. Ohio is a very unique state, but if you think about kind of what we're talking about, a framework, big, broad concepts, it's really helpful to have a bunch of partners. It also connected us to people who are much more experienced than we are in this work. So we have consultants from national organizations who have done this on the national level for different organizations, which gives us just great people to bounce ideas off of. And I've really valued them because they didn't tell us what to do, even though they could, because they're experts in this. But they've just pushed us to question ourselves and think a little bit more deeply about how we're connecting to families. And the last thing that is really great about this is it connects to a focus on equity and making sure that we're getting feedback from our stakeholders. Does anyone kind of have a sense about what equity is in this room, or would like to share their idea of what equity might mean? Equal opportunity. I think that's a great starting place for equity. My view of equity is right along with that it's making sure that whoever you're trying to be equitable to has everything that they need to be successful at the time that they need it. And for me, equity is so important because it leads to things that we hear talked about all the time, like diversity inclusion, right? So if we are going through the process of creating equitable opportunities for people, we're also creating opportunities for diversity and inclusion and making sure that everyone has a voice at the table. So I just want to walk you through a couple of our timeline items that we've been working on that be important for moving forwards. So in June 2018, we kicked off this project. We got an invitation to be in that state consortium, and I rounded up this wonderful team really quickly and said, oh man, we're going to DC. We got to figure out what we're doing with this family engagement stuff. And we got there, and we thought it was going to be a fun couple of days in the nation's capital, and I left with a list of about 35 things that I needed to do really quickly. So that was a big motivating factor for us. Then we spent time aligning, the people inside of our organization, right? Ohio Department of Education, it's a big thing. I don't know if you've ever been down there. There's about 600 people, and we had to convince everyone that this was more important than everything else they were working on. So that took about a month, but luckily we had the support of our superintendent who came down to talk about family engagement. And I'll tell you a real quick story. We were at the National Family Engagement Conference, which was in Cleveland last summer. Yes, Cleveland in the house. And we talked to the organizers, and we're like, we want to have an Ohio meeting. We want to have a big kickoff, talk with our schools and our families about how important this work is and how we're here to support them and stuff. So we had this meeting, and it was great. A bunch of people came. I was very nervous, just like this meeting, that no one was going to come. But a bunch of people came, and the superintendent came down. And I'm like, okay, can you just give like 10 minutes of remarks, tell everyone it's important, like it'll mean a lot if you tell them it's important. And so he does his remarks, he does his 10 minutes, and then we're going around. We had kind of a fair showing who's doing what across the state so people could take back ideas to their school districts or their home. And the superintendent pulled me aside. He's like, why didn't you tell me this was going on? This is amazing. He saw what was going on in Ohio and was like struck by it. He didn't know, like, to the scale that this was going on. He didn't know all the opportunities out there. And so he immediately, for better or for worse, took a great interest in what we were doing. And so he really helped us get this off the ground and really helped us convince everyone else downtown that this was an important thing to do. The next thing we had to do was align our external stakeholders, which is a fancy way of saying our friends and families, people that have stake in education but aren't sitting at those meetings in the Ohio Department of Education or aren't in these big, regional work groups and stuff. We had to get out here and see what you all had to say about this and where you all could come into play. And so we developed this advisory council, which is really exciting. And we're working on a theory of action, and something you're going to help us with this afternoon is help us draft some definitions. Now, moving forwards, today is our first meeting. It's very exciting, something we've been looking forward to months. But what we're going to do over the next couple months also is keep working with other focus groups, make sure we get a wealth of opinions from all over the state and from all different types of stakeholders, get out to their communities and make sure that we can hear from people that can't make the drive to Columbus. We're going to work on this framework together, and you're going to help us revise it, and you're going to help us make sure that it works for the state, that it works for communities that you come from. We're going to continue to develop a technical assistance response. That'll be exciting, and you can help us talk about what resources you think would be best to help connect to your schools or help connect to your families. And then in January 1st, 2020, we said we were going to have this done and be ready to roll it out to school districts so they could use it in their planning for upcoming years. And so hopefully you guys can stick with us through that exciting moment as well. I wanted to take just a second before we jump into our activity where we stop talking and you guys get to provide your feedback, to introduce the team. Some of them are here, some of them are not here, some of them already introduced themselves, but just give you a sense of like who we tried to pull together from across the department because we needed a lot of unique viewpoints on this work. So if I call your name and you are in the room, if you could give like a little wave, that'd be cool so people can come up to you if they have interest in what you're doing. So we had Anita Armstrong here, who's the Head Start Collaboration Director and another assistant director in the Office of Early Learning and School Readiness. Like I said, I am certainly not an expert in anything before kindergarten. I was an elementary school teacher. My experience with early childhood was the Head Start would come have lunch at our elementary school once a year and check out what the big kids were doing. So I'm glad to have them. Sarah Boney, who's not here today, but she is an education program specialist in our Office of Exceptional Children who works on low incidence disabilities. So she gives us a really unique perspective to make sure we're thinking about all learners. We have Cheryl Crone here, who's the Center Strategic Administrator, which is a really fancy title, but what I always refer to her as she's like our Chief Equity person at the Ohio Department of Education. So she's really helping us with that perspective and making sure that's there. We have Kim Priatle, who's my intern, who was just dragged into this, and I hope she's enjoying it. but it's been a good time, and she's been super helpful. And then we have Elizabeth Saylor here, who's another education program specialist, who's in the early learning office as well, and then myself. And I'm in improvement and innovation, and I believe that this is a way to improve our schools and our communities. So that's why I'm so dedicated to this work. So I talked really fast. I had a lot of coffee this morning. If I talked to you early this morning, I might have told you a little nervous, but I think I just said that a couple minutes ago too. But if you have any questions, I'd love to hear questions. I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear, oh, you just missed the complete point. This is pointless. Whatever you got to say, let us know. Any questions around here? That's fine. That's fine. I'm sure you'll have a bunch of questions in the future, or if you have questions anytime throughout the day, you can come up to me. Also, if you need a card or something, you just want a phone number to call anytime you need anything. I like to view myself as a connector. So if you ever need anything from the Department of Education, whether it has anything to do with this or not, feel free to reach out, and I'll try to get you in touch with whoever could help you. What I want to do now, like I said, you're probably tired of hearing us talk, but we had to get a couple things out of the way at our first meeting, just tell you why we're here and everything. But if you look in the folders here, I already pulled mine out, got excited. We got a guided notes page, guided activity page, right here. So I see some people pulling out. This table seems to have found it. I see it in the back, very good. Okay. So if you look at the side that says Defining Family Engagement, Part 1, at the very top, there's just a couple prompts here. And we got about 20 minutes before lunch. What I'd like you to do is kind of think through these first two prompts, right? When's a time that you saw families and schools work really well together? Just describe that. What did it look like? What did it sound like? Maybe it smelled nice. Maybe someone brought cookies. I don't know. But use those 5 senses. Tell us what it was like. Tell us what your experience was like. And then the next question below there, what does meaningful and authentic family engagement mean to you? So meaningful, something that is matters to you, something that is moving a needle in your life, whether it's building relationships, whether it's making your child feel more comfortable at school. Let us know what that is. And then authentic, it doesn't seem forced. It's not just a newsletter home. When did you really feel welcome in a school setting? And if you haven't had that experience, that's okay too. Share what your experiences have been, and then we're going to talk about it. But I'll give you kind of maybe the next 5 or 10 minutes, so think about these either with a neighbor you came with or by yourself, jot down some notes, and then we'll have the last 10 minutes before lunch to have a table discussion and see if you guys might be able to come up with what a vision for this looks like from your table. Does that sound good to everyone, or does anyone have any questions? Well, then I really appreciate your time, and I'll give you some quiet time to work on this. Thank you.